Recording in progress.
I'd like to call the meeting to order and start with attendance.
Chair Eagleson Cheslowich,
Present.
Vice Chair Roman,
Present.
Board Member Pease,
Present.
Board Member Willis.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay. And has Board Member Olinskas joined remotely yet, or?
Let's see. I didn't see. Oh, I think this is him on the attendees. Let me promote him to panelist.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect.
Hello. All right. Is there public comment on items not on the agenda?
I have no request to speak.
Okay. I'd like to suggest an agenda. Oh, go ahead.
If I may,
Yeah.
I believe that we need a statement from Gatus if there's anyone of over 18 in this.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I'm supposed to make a statement about what?
Oh, is there anyone over 18 in the room with you?
No. I'm in the room by myself.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to make an agenda change. I'd like to move the chair and vice chair elections to the last item on the agenda today.
We can accommodate that.
Okay, thank you. So anything else you'd suggest, or?
No further
Okay.
changes.
Okay, then I'd like to move into the first item then on the agenda and the staff report.
All right. Well, bear with me while I share my screen. We can get started with the city official reports and go into the agenda item. The study session, should I say. All right, well, we are drawing close to the end of the year. We have 2 meetings, including this one. Scheduled for today, we have the elections of the chair and vice chair, as well as a nice study session for the HRB Historic Preservation Award program and the build out of that following the addition of the previous work plan goal number 5. For the December 12th meeting, we tentatively have targeted some bonus floor area projects, but those may be pushed out towards January in the meeting. And a few items of note in the community. We had on Veterans Day a recognition event for the ribbon cutting for the restoration of the MacArthur Park flagpole monument that previously came before the HRB in 2023 for a discussion and study session. As well as earlier this week on Tuesday, we had at the special city council meeting, the report on staff's determination to remove the potentially eligible historic status from parcel reports. So that will be coming forward in the new year for the removal of those around 1,500 properties in the city of Palo Alto that currently have that designation. And I can distribute that staff report following this meeting. And with that, I can entertain any questions.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So for starters, I would have appreciated a heads up on that one. I would have liked to have been aware when it happened. But also, so if we remove their potentially eligible, well, if their potentially eligible status is removed, does that make them so I guess I'm asking which are we talking about? Are we talking about the bajillion, the 500 or whatever that are kind of out there with no, no assessment? Or are we talking about those plus the ones that have been sort of preliminary reviewed and are suspected to be?
So the removal is only for the 1,500 properties that currently have the potentially eligible. So those are a product from that 1998 2000 early Dames and Moore survey. Those properties were effectively unevaluated and identified for potentially having, either eligibility or meeting some of the criteria for historic resource designation. So it's only affecting the properties that have the potentially eligible status. Any of the previously determined or designated properties, say a category 1, 2, 3, 4, or properties within national preservation districts, say any of the other potentially, not potentially, but the contributing structures, say for some of the ICLers, none of those are going to be affected with this designation.
So it's basically the ones that were put on there because they were old. The list that was formulated without any real historic basis, just an age basis.
So the only change that's happening is that when somebody prints out a parcel report about their property, there's no longer this tag on it. And that was based on a survey that was done, 30 years ago. It has not been updated since. There are a lot of additional properties that if that survey was done now would likely be put on a potentially eligible because it's old enough list. But because there wasn't any more analysis of those at that time, you're correct. They were just primarily based on age put on, given that label. And so it doesn't change the other information that we have about any of the properties. It's just that because that really is an out of date label, that it isn't appropriate for it to be on the parcel report anymore.
Are there any further questions?
No. Can continue.
All right. Moving on to the study session for the Historic Preservation Awards. So for today, we have 4 items for discussion, kind of guiding the conversation here, if you will. So those include providing some feedback and establishing what's needed for building out a Historic Preservation Award program. That would include selection criteria, the frequency of the awards, the timing of the awards, and potentially amending the bylaws to include an article on an award program to solidify that in our rules and procedures. So jumping right in, we can either go through the slides or stop and discuss each of the ones as we come across. Either can be accommodated, but for the first selection criteria, some items for consideration, only projects that have come before the HRB could be considered. Since we have not had a program, Historic Preservation Award program with the city, we may want to consider for the first year having or expanding, if you will, the projects completed in the past 10 to 20 years. And then following that transition into projects completed since the first awards on whatever cycle that the board may choose to establish. There is another item for consideration, retaining, say, flexibility in the award criteria and perhaps reserving that for the awarding body and really not getting specific for the criteria, maybe establishing subcategories, say residential or commercial projects, and leaving it at that and retaining the flexibility in the future awarding bodies. And we can open this up for discussion or move on to the next item.
Let's move on to the next item so we can discuss kind of all of the aspects of the program together.
All right. So frequency, we could consider staggering the awards with the established architecture review design awards. Those are tentatively scheduled for 2025. So that would project the Historic Preservation Awards being in 2026 and at whatever cycle that the board may choose. The frequency of the architecture review board design awards, if you will, is on a 5-year cycle. Those started in 2005 and have been awarded since. So the Historic Resources Board may choose to establish a less frequent or more frequent cycle, but considering the amount of projects that come before the board as detailed in the staff report on this item, it may have better interest in establishing, say, a 5-year cycle to capture a larger gamut of projects. Timing, as you guys are probably aware, May is the National Preservation Month. So aligning the awards with May in 2026 could be an item of interest, as well as having it in any other month in the year, but perhaps aligning it with what the rest of the nation already considers in awards. National Preservation Month would be ideal. Also, in part of that, the Architectural Review Board includes a request of council to issue proclamations for their awarded projects. So the Historical Resources Board can request a similar approach. Those projects are displayed in City Hall lobby, so that would be something that we can consider. And the final item for discussion today would be amending the bylaws. So I've included a snippet of the Architectural Review Board article regarding their design awards, and their language here is divided into 3 sections, and that for the most part retains flexibility for the awarding body and just establishes the frequency and where the last item that we were discussing about the winning projects being displayed in City Hall and council awarding a proclamation. And with that, I can entertain any questions or go in between any of the slides.
Thank you. I guess I'll open it up to discussion by the board. I think I'd like to just sort of kick it off saying, I think a lot of these the outline of this sounds pretty good to me. I think the 5-year cycle makes a lot of sense. Annually seems way too frequent. And I think 5 years gives enough time to evaluate a good number of projects. I also do like the flexible selection criteria, because I can kind of imagine within that, bucket of projects that we've seen, there could just be really different features. I mean, not just residential versus commercial, but even, among the commercial projects I've seen since having been on the HRB, some of them are very different in the nature of what the project is asking for.
And if I may, this is an agenda item, so we should perhaps take a public comment.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Is there any public comment on this item?
I have no comments.
Okay, well, thanks. Okay. Does anybody else have comments?
I agree with everything you said.
I do. I think I'm just worried about stepping on the toes of past heritage. So they've done a great job. I admit I've been involved in some of that, so maybe I'm a little prejudiced, but I think we should coordinate with them. And I think it would be wise to talk to them sooner rather than later, and bring them into this process. And maybe we could have a committee that was a joint committee. They do annual awards. Ours could be, every 5 years, but the likelihood is that we will have some of the similar, the likelihood is that what we're recognizing, they probably have already recognized at the point where we are stepping in. So I think we need to build our relationship with that board in regard to these.
I agree. I think whatever program we design should be in complement with the programs that PAST is already running. I know they do the centennial plaques yearly, and that is something the homeowner needs to apply for. To be honest, I'm not familiar with their award programs currently. I have seen some of the awards they've done in the past, but I'm not up to date on how frequently or on what categories. I do think there is an opportunity with our award program to recognize properties that maybe past wouldn't recognize otherwise, as it seems like they focus mostly on, not entirely, but to a large extent on residential and community properties, whereas ours do kind of skew what we're seeing are business projects in the downtown corridor, for instance, the President Hotel, the adaptive reuse in the Ventura area coordinated plan. So I think I agree that we should talk to past about complementing their program rather than trying to overtake it in any way.
Well, and I think that like the flexibility of award criteria would help with that a lot. You know, if we decided to implement a program that did allow that flexibility, the board would have the discretion to tailor it in a way that, you know, provided for some differentiation.
I think I just would like to see us be diplomatic at the front end, so that it doesn't look like we're trying to come in and take over something that they've worked really hard on over the years.
I agree. And as we're talking about this, doing this every 5 years, as far as timeline is concerned, is this something that the board thinks that we would be expedient enough to talk to past and get our criteria in order and do a review and award for 2025? Or is this something that we start in 2030?
I think was the suggestion to start in 2026, and that way we're not giving awards in the same year as the ARB. So it would stagger them. So that would give an additional year of space before anything would happen.
Does the ARB do any kind of recognition celebration? I saw that they have the display in the city council lobby. Would it make sense to coordinate and do it the same year as them so that the celebration could be joint?
If I may, so we could have a coordinated event that is an option. There is, of course, the Architectural Review Board hearings that go through the selection of the projects, whittling down the list of eligible projects, as well as the ones that are finally selected. So there's a process. We could align, say, that recognition event with the Historic Resources Board. And if I may offer a suggestion based on Board Member Willis's comments, if we would like to be, say, sympathetic to the established award program in the community, we could perhaps extend an invitation for past to attend a future meeting on this topic, as well as the chair could, through their discretion, establish an ad hoc for further coordination with some members of the board to discuss and report back whatever past might have on the item.
Those sound like good options. I'm open either way. And actually, I also want to make sure we haven't overlooked our board member participating online. If there are any comments there, just wanted to make sure that we captured yours as well.
Thank you. The one thing I was thinking about with this awards program is it seems like a great opportunity to sort of help educate people also about like really well done preservation projects. And it seems that, you know, owners of restoration and preservation projects are often happy to share about the process. And I'm just thinking back to the presentation for Forest Avenue, how wonderful it was to listen to that owner talk about, you know, his love for this piece of heritage and restoring it. And other than having a display, you know, in City Hall lobby, I'm wondering if there's some other way that, you know, the HRB could build on this preservation program as sort of an education tool. Maybe there's a page on this HRB section on the website where we can also have some sort of catalog or description of the projects or something like that, so that again, they actually form sort of an outreach to people and it helps them understand, the process and the benefits.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me think that we should be more active with Preservation Week. That I think in the past, the board members, I think probably independently rather than as directly as HRB board members, but they've given tours of downtown or Homer Avenue as, part of Preservation Week. They've been much more active in well, not consistently, but over the years, there have been times when the HRB board was much more active in actually getting out in the community and giving tours and talking to people and going to past awards ceremonies, which tend to have homeowners come up and talk about their projects to various degrees, depending on how, what the projects were. I think unfortunately, 2025 is sounding really close. And I think maybe this Preservation Week, we, kind of get out there and see what's available in the community, because it's not just Palo Alto. There's other communities that do a lot of preservation activities around Preservation Week. So I think that we kind of need a year to study our project and see how we want to go. But if we wanted to barge in on a smaller scale, I would support that. I think we could do, a little event and, maybe 1 or 2 awards, just testing the waters, kind of see where we want to go. And then if we wanted to establish a 5-year cycle starting in 2026, we might know more like what we want those awards to look like, what we, how we want to interact with the owners and with the community regarding those. So maybe 2025 is a test period for us where we kind of see what we want to do. I mean, what are these awards? I assume we're not giving them money, but I've spent, quite some time doing graphics for past awards in the past. So I think we should probably look at what's been done over the years for the past awards and see what we're looking at as far as, and maybe look at what the HRB actually presents to people. I don't know, are they just proclamations? I don't know, but we should look at it. I think we need a year of studying and maybe a test case or 2.
Yeah, it also, I just while we're doing this, went over to the past website and found their preservation awards page. It looks like they have been actively giving awards since 1998. That said, it says honored people, businesses, and groups, but it doesn't explicitly have defined categories necessarily. They're doing a really clear and good job of honoring preservationists and owners of homes and businesses who respectfully care for their buildings that they will endure to be appreciated by generations to come. And that's verbatim. I'm reading from their site. I think we have an interesting opportunity to define categories like we talked about. One that comes to mind for me is adaptive reuse, which is something that I don't think past is necessarily thinking about assigning a label to. Rather, I think they're thinking about it. I don't think they're using that label. And again, a good example of that would be the Graduate Hotel. I previously called it the President Hotel. That's the bar on top. But it's the Graduate Hotel, which they have done an award for. But I also think the old Fry's building, the cannery, that would be a great, let's see how that project pans out. But that's another one for adaptive reuse that could be really interesting.
So regarding outreach to past, is there interest in participation in an ad hoc committee? I think, kind of thinking about that for a few minutes, I wonder if that might kind of just allow for more natural dialogue than a meeting would permit. Is anybody interested?
I'm interested.
Okay.
I'm also interested. Caroline, you have the direct relationship with some of the past members, right? Because you're a current member, and were you formerly on their leadership team?
We should all be current
I know.
members. And yes, I have, full disclosure, I have been president of past in the past.
I would love to support this committee because I would like to be more involved and build those relationships with that organization.
And at our current board size, an ad hoc committee is 2?
Correct.
Okay. So would you like to meet with them and then sort of report back on their reactions? I think it might be helpful to have like a little bit of a general proposal that we have, sort of like broadly agree on today to use as a basis for discussion. Does that? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So based on the staff report and at least the discussion I'm hearing, that sounds like, awards potentially starting in 2026, a 5-year cadence with an acknowledgement via proclamation, a lobby display, and website content. Flexible criteria.
Okay, my only
Yeah.
problem with 2026 is that it's hard to keep in your head. I mean, the 5-year thing starting on a 5 and a 0, that works for me. But I mean, it's going to be harder to do any other. I don't know. I have questions about that one.
I agree, and I actually kind of want to couple it. I know I agree with coupling it with Preservation Week, which maybe won't work with when the ARB does their awards, but I do think it makes sense to be on the same cadence as the ARB awards.
What time of year does the ARB do their awards?
Typically, it is in the spring,
Okay.
and their article that was displayed on the screen does not specify a certain time of month.
Okay. Would it lead to kind of like lobby density?
That was precisely the concern that I was about to express, is that we want to make sure that that we have sufficient space to really showcase both what ARB is identifying and what you're identifying. And really, I think you do potentially lose some of the benefit of really showcasing historic when it's kind of mixed and maybe not as clear, having both displayed at the same time. So I think that is an important consideration.
I could
How
argue
long are
either
the
way.
displays up for? I'm sorry.
I don't know how long the displays are up for. I think it is monthly, but we can look into that.
I don't think that should sway our decision. I think that that's workable somehow. And I think, rather than distract, it might get more people in to look at the historic, if it's mixed in with the ARB awards. I don't know, it might just give it a different perspective. So I think we're in a trial and error stage in my head. And I think we should, see what works for us and not hold ourselves down too tightly. And maybe the first ones we do in 2026, and then maybe we go to 2030. I don't know.
I do like the idea of at least doing the first round in 2026. 2025 seems too soon. That seems close, and but I think 2026 is very achievable. And I think at that point we could potentially reevaluate the timing and cadence. But I think that 2025 is just coming up awfully fast.
I agree. And I think we also need to evaluate, as the proposal, the staff report said, do we look at projects from the past 10 to 20 years? What is our criteria? And do we need to consider only projects that are finished? Because we've looked at a lot of and advised on a lot of projects that are in progress, but I don't know how many projects finished we've seen this year that we could actually award in 2026. I want to, Board Member Linskas, do you have comment? I want to make sure we don't miss you.
Oh, well, no, I completely agree about 2026. My office applies for awards, and I know that usually the announcements for submissions come out like 6 months before the submissions, and then there's like a 2-month period where the submissions are evaluated. So yeah, it's too soon for 2025.
To the ARB's awards, is there just one or are there categories?
That could be at the discretion of the board.
Okay, I'm just wondering,
It's
how
like,
did
what
the
does the
ARB do
ARB
it?
do currently?
Oh, excuse me, I didn't hear the question, sorry. The ARB awards, staff does compile a running list, if you will, of the projects that have gone before the ARB, as well as the ones that have been completed. And through that list, that's distributed to the board, and they whittle down, if you will, through that list of projects that they think are of note.
But
And it is multiple
It is
awards in each cycle under different categories, but they define the categories each time
okay,
in terms of what their awards would be. And sometimes they might have, for example, a residential category, which they wouldn't find one that they wanted to award that particular time. And so there was no award given in that category. So if aligning with the ARB, it would be potential for multiple projects and under different categories that you as a group could define and could use differently each cycle.
so in theory, there could be 2 awards one year and 5 the next. Okay,
Correct.
good.
So how many do they typically do in a cycle?
It is in flux, it's changing. So it can be anywhere from, say, 1 award to 5. The numbers change based on development and what the board may think would be of note to recognize.
And since neither of us as staff have actually been part of the past years, we don't have that information.
I do like the idea of recognizing completed projects, at least for the most part, in case something, changes dramatically, goes wrong, something happens that way that's not on the books, is recognizing something that, eventually doesn't pan out the way we may have hoped for in the acknowledgement.
And I have a question for board member Ulinskis, right? Ulinskis, sorry, I'm saying that
Well
wrong.
done.
So when your firm applies for architectural awards, I'm assuming these are awards that are at more of a national or statewide scale, and that there is some recognition or award, like not monies, but some higher level of recognition that comes with them, correct?
Correct. A lot of times they're associated with design magazines and stuff.
Okay.
And so, the prize is that you get featured in their issue that sort of goes through all the winners, and it motivates people because it's a lot of work to sort of put the submissions together. So, it would be nice if we could really have a carrot to say that particularly the design team involved will get a lot of recognition and visibility beyond just a piece of foam core in the lobby for a month.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at is this something that we think we would open up for nominations or applications, or is this because it's such a relatively small local honor that we're not associating with money or publication, that we just proactively review projects and go out and give it?
If I may,
Yes.
I believe it would be the latter. So staff could compile the list of projects that have come before the board as well as completed ones. And I would also like to direct your attention to work plan goal number 2. That is an attachment, I believe, A. So that is creating more user-friendly and educational resources regarding historic preservation. So I think, having a build out of the website and including these awards, or if not featuring these projects, would be in full alignment with the work plan goals.
And through the chair, an additional thought based on your discussion about timing earlier and the additional information shared by the board member about, submittals 6 months in advance. While we wouldn't be asking for submittals, one way to characterize the award would be projects that have been completed through the end of 2025 on a 5-year cycle. So you are tying to that number that kind of keys in the brain to the 5 years, even if the award is actually given 5 months later in May of 2026.
Could we call it the 2025 awards in that case? Sorry, Caroline, did you have the same question?
No, I was going to say good thinking. Thank you.
Yes, I like that as well. Could we say it's for the calendar year 2025 that it's awarded?
I think you absolutely could, because it is projects completed through 2025. Then there is the review process that takes a few months, and then preparation of the award and inviting them to prepare materials for display on in the lobby.
That makes me actually very happy. That is great.
I think that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So regarding checking in with past, does it seem reasonable for the subcommittee to do that within the next couple of months and plan to check in at a, meeting like early in the new year, like January? Does January sound reasonable? February?
I vote for January. I think we
January,
can get
okay.
on the December agenda. Maybe we can get invited to their holiday party. I don't know.
I will go with you if we can.
But I think, yes, I think coming back to the board at our first January meeting is reasonable. And we might have some more solid idea, all of us, after thinking about it more
Okay.
specifically between now and then.
And
Just
Give
for
suggestions.
clarification in the record, so for the ad hoc committee,
yeah,
it will be board member Willis as well as board member, or vice chair, should I say, Roman.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
So does that sound like a plan? Everybody's with that some general outlines. We're going to chat with past, talk about it again in January. Okay, good. All right. If there's nothing else on that, I'd like to move forward to the approval of the meeting minutes from the October 10th meeting. Is there any public comment on this one?
No comments.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
No, I was just going to say the action item that we still have for the
Oh,
election.
I thought we'd moved that like last.
Oh, excuse me. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Mine isn't really on the minutes per se, but for future minutes, I'd really like to add a section at the bottom on future discussion items or future agenda items, because I think it would be good for us to have that little sort of record at the bottom, that it's kind of follow-up. And maybe it's not part of the minutes, but I think it could be, that's all sort of condensed at one, 5 lines at the end or whatever. So ad hoc committee to meet with past regarding, obviously not on these last minutes, but I just think it would be nice to have some little, and instead of having to leaf through the whole thing to see what our action items are, it would be nice to have a little thing at the bottom. I think we've done that in the past, but I don't remember how long ago that was.
If I may, through the chair. So there is in the city official reports a detail of some pending or upcoming hearing items. So that would be at the beginning of the minutes that would be approved. As for a summary of the minutes, we have a transcription service that provides the meeting minutes. So that would be an additional ask of staff, and I'll let the assistant director speak on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll jump in. The purpose of the minutes really is to present what was said during the meeting. And so we do work to try and make sure the meeting minutes for all of our public hearings are consistent with what's prepared for city council. And so adding an additional section at the end, we do try and call out when motions are made, and so that you can quickly find some of those things. If there's refinement that can be made to try and make it easier to work through it. But doing an independent summary at the end, which is out of order of what was actually conducted during the meeting, wouldn't be appropriate as part of that particular document.
Does anybody have any corrections to the October 10th meeting minutes?
I only have one. So on page 20, where I was speaking near the end, well, like 3/4 of the way down, Board Member Willis expressed her support. And I probably misspoke, but I'm going to pretend like I didn't. She hoped Past Heritage would share some of their resources. And I meant the homeowners in that case. So not past resources, but the homeowners' resources on their webpage.
We'll have a review of the transcription, and if it was said, we'll
Okay.
amend it, but if it was spoken as written, it would need to remain.
But we do have your clarification for today's minutes. So it will be in the record, the correction of what you intended.
Okay, thank you. All right, then I move to approve the minutes from the October 10th, 2024 meeting. I believe we can do this by voice vote. All right,
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
The
Aye.
motion was approved unanimously by voice vote.
And through the chair, I'm sorry, since we do have somebody participating remotely, we
Oh.
do need to do
Oh,
a
sorry.
name
Oh.
I thought I
vote.
had it this time. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna do it the other way.
Chair Eagleson Cheslowitz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Roman,
Yes.
Board Member Pease,
Yes.
Board Member Yulinskis,
Yes.
Board Member Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. All right.
Sorry to complicate things so much.
Then our last item is the election of the chair and vice chair. I wanted to start off opening this up, I think, to a more general discussion. One thing we've discussed with staff is that this would lead to a very abbreviated term because the election typically takes place in the spring and will take place in the spring again. So we're wondering about, like, if there are reactions to just sort of maintaining the status quo until the typical election in the spring because of the like tremendously abbreviated term that would result.
I think that's an excellent idea.
I also am supportive of the chair and vice chair just continuing their terms until the spring election time.
And I realized I did not ask for public comment on this. So is there any public comment?
I have no request
Okay.
to speak.
Thank you. Are there other comments on?
No, it sounds great. Are we going to vote on it? Or do we need nomination? So, so can I just make a motion that we continue with the current chair and vice chair, or do we need to have a more elaborate?
One motion would suffice.
Okay, so I move that we, our current chair and vice chair continue until April. Is that what our date is?
Until the next election.
Until the next election.
I second the motion.
And now we'll vote individually.
Board Member Willis,
Oh, yes.
Board Member Yulinskis,
Yes.
Board Member Pease,
Yes.
Vice Chair Roman,
Yes.
Chair Eagleson Cheslowitz.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Great. Is there anything else? Announcements, questions?
Of course. So first I want to say I went to the veterans event and it was really small towny. It felt great. I really enjoyed it. MacArthur Park is beautiful. We should all start going more. You know, when it first opened, I went all the time. And I was sitting with Pat Bird at one point and he was saying the same thing, you know, we just need to go back there. It's just charming. And I was really happy that Mayor I don't know if he's mayor, but anyway, Pat said that, you know, they were really looking forward to incorporating MacArthur Park into the new plan for the train station. They're really hoping to get the train station back open. Hallelujah. That would be so nice. So yeah, it was really lovely and darling event, and they had great food. So my other, I also, while I was there, I talked to Steve Steiger, who is on the History Museum Board, and he said, he asked me a few questions for, well, he is looking for answers to a few questions from community members regarding the History Museum. They are looking for, well, they're currently interviewing for, I think, their new, whatever you call him, director, who is not going to be a Palo Alton, so they're going to need help. So Steve's questions, and I think we should all get back to him on these, are what do you expect to see when you walk in the History Museum? What are your expectations? And then what would you like to see that you think might get left out? You know, what's something that's really significant about Palo Alto history that they might not include in the History Museum? So I think it would be nice if we could email Steve with those answers, because I think that our new director is going to need all the input he can get from us. I also talked about touring the History Museum. I guess I'm wondering if we want to set it up as a board tour, if we want to set up individual tours. I know they do tours every Tuesday morning, but I think that's primarily with their contractors. I don't think they're public tours, you know, that they're sort of coordinating their construction. But I think that Karen Holman would give us a tour if we were looking for that. And I guess I just want to know what you guys think. Should I just go on myself and, you know, schedule a tour, or should we try and get one collectively?
I would be very interested in having a tour of where the museum currently is.
Is that
And
meeting-ish?
if I may, so
Oh,
just to ensure no violations of the Brown Act, we'll need to consult with our attorneys just to ensure that, say, an entire board composition tour, what would be required to have such an event.
And it is something that can be arranged. We just would, you know, invite you to coordinate with staff to make sure that we can make sure it's not violating Brown Act rules, whether it needs to be publicly noticed or whether it's just attendance at an event that other people are at and it's fine. We just want to check on that.
Yeah, and when you do, I think it'd be great to have that in writing. So in the future, we all just kind of knew where we stood with the Brown Act, you know, it's not a big deal. But okay, so are we going to assume that at some point, we're not going to collect? So if two of us went on a tour, it wouldn't be any big deal, right? So maybe we just break up and do it now, because I am anxious to see that building. And then I guess my last comment is, I don't like this venue. Can we please move to the conference room?
We can look into that, but the board chambers are designed for meetings. They're equipped with all of the equipment and the cameras, as well as the necessary items for the clerk. So another venue would require some further investigation as well as planning. So we can definitely look into that.
Yeah, the main thing is that since this is a public meeting and that it is a hybrid style meeting, we are set up for that with the cameras and everything here. But as the liaison said, we can look into it.
So the conference room still hasn't been set up for hybrid meetings?
We will check.
If I may, through that, the conference room has capabilities for that, but it does require additional setup that, say, this room that we're in now would not, say, have that tax on staff. So.
Yeah, I recall that from when we did do those community meetings in there during the inventory like initiative. There was some additional stuff required. I don't remember specifically what, but there was set up. Yeah. And we did have, I think, I remember at one of those meetings, there were some like AV glitches that impacted the meeting in there.
I know it sounds petty, but I just don't think this is a good look for us. We're like talking to space. And I think that it just sets us up as isolated from the universe. And it doesn't feel good either, by the way. So I think that it would really change the whole atmosphere if we moved into a venue that was more appropriate for the kinds of meetings we have.
Are there comments or questions or any additional items from other board members?
The only other announcement that I have is Veronica helped me register earlier this year for the National Association of Preservation Committees online, some online learning that they have of recorded sessions. And I need to do them before the end of November. And so I want to put myself on the hook to come back in our first meeting of the year and kind of do a very brief readout of the sessions I attended and some key learnings from those, because I think one of the key ones that I'm excited to attend is community education. And I'm sure there's some interesting bits in there too about preservation awards, and there's all kinds of good stuff. So I would like to get on the agenda for the first meeting of the year to do a brief summary of those learnings.
That sounds fine if it works for staff.
That does.
Great, great. Now I have to do it in a timely manner.
All right. Anything else? All right. Well, then I move to adjourn
Second.
and we'll vote individually.
I don't know if you have to
Do we?
move to, you, as the chair,
don't
you
now
can just
for this?
end.
Okay, come on.
If I may, as the chair, you can adjourn the meeting.
All right, all set then. Let's adjourn the meeting.
Good work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.